time to get back to talking about some baseball. And welcome aboard, everybody. Back here to the Sports Talk Nation. It is Michael Cohen here with you to talk a little about some baseball as the New York Mets just continue to find ways to win ball games in spite of all the obstacles that are really against them from on their own front, from injuries to poor play as far as the hitting is concerned, not really consistent. Yet this team still finds ways to win games. And they are right now still in first place. 20 wins, 16 losses. They just completed winning a series down in Atlanta, winning the first 2 games of that 3-game series. 2 huge wins considering the circumstances involved. Now, obviously with the injuries. We start obviously with the Kevin Pillar injury from Monday night, where he took the 94.5-mile-an-hour fastball off of his face from Jacob Webb. Really a really terrifying moment for that matter. Where Pillar was on his knees, had gushing blood out of his face, as we all saw. But what you took out of that moment was the fact that Pillar, one, was okay. He tweeted out saying that he was fine, thanked everybody for the support, and then came back on Tuesday during a press conference, his face completely swollen. This after the Mets came out with a press release saying that he was going to see some facial specialists and probably was going to have some surgery done on his nose once the swelling subsides, but saying that, he came into the locker room and said, am I in the lab today? And I guess the kind of way to loosen up the clubhouse a little bit. And said he didn't want to disappoint teammates, that he wanted to be out there in the field. And stayed in the dugout throughout the game. That is a sign of how this team, in spite of everything that's going on right now, has found a way to come together and play as one unit. And that's really something that has been fun to see so far here in the first half of this season from this ball club. Because let's just be honest, the injuries that this team has suffered so far this year are incredible. 13 different players have had injuries so far this season. Obviously, the biggest name there being Jacob deGrom, still with the tightness in his side. He is expected back on Friday. J.D. Davis with a left hand injury. Really no idea when he's going to really come back. They say it could be soon. Brandon Nimmo with the bone bruise in his left finger. Index finger, time to return is to be announced. Conforto and McNeil, both with hamstring injuries. They're on the IL. There's no determination of when they will return. Of course, hamstring injuries are very, very tricky. Taijuan Walker had tightness in his side. MRI came back clean. We'll see if he is able to make his next start. If not, maybe the start after that. And then, of course, the Kevin Pillar injury, which was just talked about. Luis Guillorme, Albert Amaro Jr., of course, slamming into the wall, getting a shoulder contusion. There is some good news, of course. You have Noah Syndergaard, Carlos Carrasco, and Seth Lugo on their way back at some point. Lugo had a bullpen session today. It was a good session, but again, he needs more time to rehab. He's probably a couple weeks away. And Noah Syndergaard, coming off of Tommy John surgery, probably won't see him until June. Same thing with Carrasco coming off the hamstring tear. Probably won't see him until June. So there's help on the way. But in the interim, you take a look at these injuries. You have these kind of injuries that would normally decimate a team, and you could see a team kind of fall flat after that. Hasn't happened here for the Mets because, again, they just find ways to win. Look at that 7-game winning streak. And this team has really put this together mainly based off of the efforts of not just a lot of their reserves, like Kevin Pillar, Jonathan Villar, but we'll get into that in just a moment, of the irregulars for that matter, but even with this bullpen, which has, for the most part, been very, very solid for the Mets from that standpoint. During that 7-game winning streak, the Mets bullpen had given up a total of only 6 earned runs in 36 innings, and that is including 2 bullpen games. I know they like to use the word opener, but when you bring in a reliever to start the game, it's a bullpen day. So even with that, that's 6 earned runs in 36 innings. That's a 1.50 ERA. Now, when you keep doing that, eventually the dam is going to break. It broke a little bit in Tampa Bay, obviously with the fact the Mets couldn't hold on to a 2-0 lead. And in the first game in Tampa Bay, ended up losing that game 3-2. The fact that Tampa Bay exploded in the next 2 days with 11 runs, or 12 runs, I should say, on Saturday and 7 more runs on Sunday. So you knew at some point that the bullpen was going to get really, the amount of work they were getting was going to come back and bite them. But for this team to come back in a big series against the Atlanta Braves, You have all these injuries. You have two more injuries on Monday. And for the bullpen to do as well as it has done the last two nights is incredible. And I know the Braves aren't hitting as a team right now, but you're still talking about a team that has a lot of firepower in the lineup. Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman, Marcelo Ozuna. They have a lot of guys that can crush the baseball, and this bullpen has found a way to hold them down. The Braves have only scored against this bullpen. You include the 6 innings that they pitched in on Monday. Okay, after Walker left the ball game, you had Sean Reed Foley come in for 3 innings, and then everyone else followed him after that. And then in today's game, tonight, or in Tuesday's game, I should say, where we had Miguel Castro and Tommy Hunter and Robert Gazelman and Trevor May and Jerry Familia and Aaron Loop, and then, of course, Edwin Diaz. Those guys all combined tonight and yesterday, 4 earned runs. That's it in these 2 games against this Braves team. That is equivalent to an ERA of 2.40. Over the last 2 games, 2 big games the Mets had to have in division. And when you are a team that is in a division that's very, very tight, you can push the Braves back a little bit more. So that makes the Mets feel good about themselves. Now Atlanta's now 4 back. So these were 2 huge games the Mets had to have, and they found ways to win them. The tight game, obviously, on Monday, 3-1, and then today's game, which was really, in a lot of ways, the game on Tuesday was kind of like a microcosm of the Mets season in a lot of ways. Not getting a lot of hits. A lot of the big names in the lineup weren't doing a lot offensively. Another quiet day for Pete Alonso, who was 0 for 3. A quiet day for Dominic Smith, who was 1 for 4. Francisco Lindor did have a couple of hits. He ended up scoring a run on a sac fly. But, there really wasn't a lot of big offensive firepower from the regulars. It was the irregulars, the guys who you would see come off the bench. Jonathan Villar with a big 2-run home run gave the Mets the lead at 2-0. It's the second home run in a week. You then saw, of course, at the end of the game, the big home run, obviously by Thomas Nido, as he gives the Mets the lead in the 9th inning as they go on to win 4-3. So it's all these other guys, Nido, it's Villar, it's Pilar, and really Pilar and Villar, when they were really, orchestrating a lot of these victories from the Mets of late. Getting on base, creating runs, getting big base hits. Even in games where it looked like they were going to lose, like the game against Arizona, the infamous raccoon game, where we saw Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil have some kind of scuffle down in the tunnel of the dugout. And, of course, that was highlighted by the Patrick Mazeika infield single that brought in the winning run. And then you had the game a couple days later where the Mets won a game against Baltimore that they probably should have lost on an infield grounder, fielder's choice by Mazeika, as well as Jonathan Villar scored the winning run. So the Mets have found ways to get good performances out of guys who are on their bench and, of course, out of their bullpen. So it's big moments like that, big plays like that by the reserves, by the guys off this bench, guys coming from AAA that have really contributed to keeping this team moving in the right direction. Can that continue? Obviously, ideally, you like to see the regular guys get going. This is still a team that has struggled to score runs this year. This is still a team that's struggling to swing the bat. They aren't getting a lot of sound hits. You see a team that at times looks like they're still trying to swing for the fence in a lot of situations. You like to see this team kind of string hits together, string innings together, string runs together. That hasn't happened yet. And as I said, Lindor's still struggling right now, batting around 200, maybe just under 200. Pete Alonso really hasn't gotten going, even though he does have 19 RBIs. Dominic Smith, Michael Conforto, Jeff McNeil. Even though those 2 guys, McNeil and Conforto, have been now on the IL. Even before that, really haven't been swinging really hot, solid bats at this point in the year so far. So, with all those guys struggling, and with all the injuries now to this rotation, no deGrom, no Syndergaard, no Carrasco, it's amazing that this team finds itself where it is right now. And if you have to be hopeful from this standpoint, if you're a Met fan, that if these guys can come back, those that are injured, and if this offense can get going, then this team can really start to make things happen in the NL East as we move into the summer. But we'll see how that plays out. But a huge series win coming off of the sweep against losing 3 straight games to the Tampa Bay Rays after a humbling weekend. Very big for the Mets as they win this series. Now they get Miami coming up on over the weekend. You'd like to see the Mets sweep the Braves, obviously the game on Wednesday, but they have the series in hand anyway. You got Miami coming up in the weekend. You want to take that and you want to build and win these series, especially in division. And then the division that's so tight. I mean, Philadelphia's, is kind of like the Mets, very inconsistent. Atlanta, very inconsistent. Washington has been, everyone's been inconsistent in this division. And if you're the Mets right now, you are one of only 2 teams over 500. You're the only team that's 4 over 500 in this division. You want to win as many games as you can, especially in division. So from the Mets standpoint, impressive that this team finds ways to win. And if you're a Met fan, you have to be happy about that. But you also have to be cognizant and worried about the injuries and also, again, some of the things we've seen all year, kind of a struggle to get runs across, especially with runners in scoring position here in the early going of the 2021 season. So, again, kill the like and subscribe button. Remember to also follow us on social media at OpenMikeNJ on Twitter and also Facebook.com/OpenMikeProgram. And we'll talk to you next time.